There's a part of the ocean the world has never touched. A kingdom beneath the waves where time moves slower and hearts beat louder, where the songs of ancestors echo through coral walls and the water remembers everything. And in that place, in that silence, a king was born. He wasn't raised on glory or praise. He was forged in shadows, in stories whispered through currents. He learned early that the surface world brings fire before it brings peace, that survival means staying hidden, unheard, unseen. And for centuries, that's exactly what his people did. But the world never stays quiet for long. Greed has a way of digging deeper than it should. And when Wakanda stepped into the spotlight, carrying vibranium in open hands, the ocean felt the tremor. Namor didn't see allies. He saw a warning, a prophecy, a crack in the armor of their sanctuary. He didn't speak with diplomacy. He roared with legacy. Because sometimes protecting your people means being feared, being misunderstood, being hated. He didn't want war, but he was prepared for it, because history had already taught him what happens when you're not. And yet, somewhere in that rage was something softer, something ancient and sacred and protective. Not a villain's ambition, but a guardian's vow. The kind that makes you question what side you're really on, and what price is worth paying to keep your home untouched. In this video, we're diving deep into the tragedy and brilliance of Namor, breaking down why he was never the villain, why Wakanda was never the enemy, and why sometimes the most dangerous heroes are the ones with nothing left to lose but their silence. Namor didn't wake up and decide to be a villain. He wasn't chasing power for the sake of it. He was defending a kingdom hidden beneath the sea that had never hurt anyone, a place untouched by colonizers or conquerors, simply because no one knew it existed. And that secrecy, that peace, was everything to him. So, when Wakanda revealed vibranium to the world, it wasn't just a headline for Namor, it was a siren blaring through centuries of silence. Vibranium was the very reason his people had survived, and now the surface world was hunting for it with greedy eyes. He saw the writing on the wall, saw history repeating itself, and he wasn't wrong to be alarmed. From his point of view, Wakanda had made the first move. By stepping into the global spotlight, they pulled vibranium out of the shadows. And once that kind of power becomes public knowledge, the consequences follow. Nations would never stop digging, never stop invading, never stop stealing. It was only a matter of time before Talokan was discovered. Namor didn't act out of cruelty, he acted out of foresight. He saw a threat to his people's survival and moved to eliminate it before it reached his doorstep. And to him, Wakanda's pride and isolationism made them blind to the ripple effects of their choices. They thought they were protecting the world, but Namor thought they had just doomed it. The world paints Namor like he's just another superpowered tyrant. Another guy with wings on his feet and a chip on his shoulder. But that lazy narrative misses the core of his rage. It ignores centuries of trauma that Talokan avoided only by hiding in silence. And then Wakanda broke that silence like it didn't matter. They knew what vibranium meant. They knew what it did to the world, to colonizers, to empires. And still, they stood before the United Nations with chins held high, declaring they had the moral compass to guide the world's future. But Namor knew better. He knew no nation has ever handled power without blood on their hands. It's exhausting watching people pretend Namor was just irrational, like his response wasn't rooted in lived history and protective instinct. Like his fury came from ego instead of fear. It's the same tired narrative we've seen before, where those who resist power are painted as the ones abusing it. And Wakanda, for all its wisdom, failed to see the storm they were creating. They thought diplomacy would be enough. But Namor had no reason to believe the surface world could be reasoned with. Not when the ocean remembers every empire that ever tried to claim it. So, yeah, Namor struck first. But it wasn't out of pride. It was out of desperation, out of fury that history keeps repeating itself, because no one ever learns. And this time, he wasn't going to let Talokan be the next name on a long list of ruined civilizations. There's a deep sadness beneath everything Namor does. You can feel it in the way he talks about his people, in the quiet reverence he holds for their world beneath the waves. He carries a burden that no surface king can understand. A responsibility not just to lead, but to shield. Talokan isn't just a city, it's a sanctuary. It's a culture untouched by the horrors of slavery and conquest, because they never surfaced. They chose to vanish. And Namor was the one who kept that promise alive. He wears that weight in every word, every threat, every decision. When he watches the surface world from afar, it isn't with envy, it's with mourning. He sees oceans poisoned, lands scarred, skies blackened by ambition. And he knows that all of it will eventually reach the depths if someone doesn't stop it. That helpless inevitability cuts deep. Wakanda should have been an ally, a sister nation with shared scars and mutual stakes. But instead, they became another risk. Another loud voice in a world already too noisy. Namor wasn't angry that Wakanda had vibranium. He was heartbroken that they didn't treat it like the sacred thing it was. So he lashed out, not from malice, but from grief. From the knowledge that the more the world sees, the less they respect. And the deeper that grief runs, the sharper the edge he carries with him. That's the tragedy of Namor. A protector born in sorrow, turned into a weapon by the fear of loss. Namor walks with the gravity of a god, not because he wants worship, but because he carries generations on his back. Every time he rises from the ocean, it's like nature itself is stepping into the conversation. His presence is ancient, regal, unshakable. He doesn't posture, he commands. And Talokan, that city, is a marvel beyond comprehension. Glowing flora, architecture built in harmony with nature. People thriving in a world no surface dweller could survive. It's not just beautiful, it's sacred. Every corner of it whispers of resilience, of harmony, of survival without exploitation. To witness Talokan is to be reminded that there are still wonders in this world that don't owe their existence to violence. That there are still stories we haven't heard, cultures we haven't destroyed, lives we haven't touched. And Namor stands as the living shield between those wonders and the greed of nations. He isn't just a character, he's a myth come alive. A symbol of power born not from conquest, but from protection. And that kind of strength isn't flashy. It's rooted. It's spiritual. It's the kind that humbles you the longer you look at it. So when Namor speaks, it's not with volume, it's with weight. He's not here to impress. He's here to remind us that some legacies live so deeply in the earth and ocean that even time can't erase them. And honestly, that kind of presence deserves reverence. Despite everything, Namor doesn't hate Wakanda. He respects their power. He respects their pain. He sees in them a mirror of what Talokan could become, for better or worse. And that's why he tried to forge an alliance, not a war. Because he believed there was still a path forward that didn't end in blood. Shuri saw that too, eventually. Saw the burden he carried and the love he had for his people. They weren't enemies by nature. They were made enemies by fear, by miscommunication, by choices made too fast and understood too late. But there was a sliver of understanding between them. And in that sliver is where hope lives. Because if Wakanda and Talokan could see past their wounds, they could become something the world has never seen. A united force grounded in culture, resilience, and justice. A reminder that power doesn't have to corrupt if it's shared wisely. Namor doesn't want domination. He wants peace with dignity. He wants his people to thrive without having to beg or fight for the right to exist. And deep down, that's what Wakanda wants too. A place in the world without compromise. So maybe the future isn't written in war. Maybe it's written in mutual survival. In two nations rising from loss and choosing alliance over annihilation. That choice still exists. It always has. Namor was right, not because he was perfect, but because he saw the truth no one else wanted to see. That power always attracts predators. That survival in silence isn't cowardice, it's wisdom. That sometimes the loudest threat comes not from weapons, but from intention. Wakanda wasn't evil, but they were loud, proud, bold in a world that devours anything it doesn't control. And in their boldness, they threatened the balance Namor had spent his life protecting. They didn't mean to. But meaning doesn't matter when survival is at stake. This wasn't a battle of good versus evil. It was a collision of values. Preservation versus revelation. Silence versus influence. Namor fought for the right to stay forgotten, to remain untouched. And in doing so, he became a villain to those who never bothered to ask why. The tragedy isn't that he attacked Wakanda. The tragedy is that he had to. That the only language the world understands is conflict. That even the most beautiful kingdoms are forced to draw blood to stay standing. And that even with all his power, Namor couldn't escape that truth. But in the end, maybe that's what makes his story matter. Not the wings on his feet or the battles he fought, but the fact that he loved his people so deeply, he became a monster in someone else's story just to keep them safe. And maybe, just maybe, that makes him more hero than villain. Thank you for watching the whole video. I make videos because of my love for Star Wars and Marvel. I've been asked countless times how I get my subtitles, and I generate them automatically with a tool I built. That same tool can be used here on my website. It's completely free and doesn't require signing up. My website contains the subtitle generator that is perfect for any video. Blogging post, where you can sign up with your email and receive notifications for when I post, and also my 3 channels. Critical Analysis Hub focuses on Star Wars and Marvel movies. Critical Analysis Hub Plus looks at Star Wars and Marvel shows. And Critical Analysis Hub XP centers on video games, like The Last of Us series, Jedi Survivor, and GTA 5. Thank you for being a fan.